Hey, Status Steve, please like and subscribe. Please click on the Deck Heroes icon. Click on subscribe, 100% free. Brackets, blood in, blood out. Jokes aside, listen, this is a video from a gentleman who is 35 years old. Never had a girlfriend before. Never had a girlfriend before. As a man who's had a career in dating, I think I have something to add to this subject. It may well be brutal though, so I don't intend it to be brutal, but I'm just going to be upfront. Let's see what he's got to say.
Hey Nobodies, it's me here once again, here with my co-host Mr. Nobody. The other day, YouTube recommended me two videos that were titled basically, I'm 25 years old and I've never had a girlfriend. Those weren't the exact titles of those videos, but they were more or less the titles of those videos. So I watched these videos, and I'm watching the two dudes in the videos. The thing that struck me the most was the fact...
Listen, before I go too far, listen, I need to give you some background and give some things away. I recognise when I was younger, I was a little bit more kind of shy and reserved. I'm an only child, so I'm not a kind of guy who needs to be centre stage and things like that, and I didn't... Basically, I wasn't in a rush, and I said I didn't know the etiquette about how to go and approach somebody. I didn't know what to say, and that was a big step. You know what I mean? I'd be chilling with my boys, my mates who I'd grown up with over a period of time, and have a conversation with them about men stuff. But what do you talk to women about? Until I figured out that, women are just like us, really. Women are human beings, they say. You know what I mean? And just to be natural and just have a relaxed conversation about something that may well be of mutual interest, just general things. What's she up to? How was her weekend? Has she been anywhere interesting? What's she like to do? As you get older, what your job is, a bit cliche, but at least listen, if you're desperate, you need to go to the reserves of things you can talk about. And when you're younger, okay, you're at college, you're at uni, okay, how you finding that? You studying? You enjoying it? Similar. It's all very similar. You know what I mean? What made you choose that? What are you going to do after? Yeah. And just make it about them. That's another thing as well. You need to have these conversations and realise that ladies of all ages, they want you to give them that attention. And as a man, you need to accept that that's the reality. You know what I mean? It's not about you expressing your point of view on something and potentially saying something which is going to give just a blatant instant red flag. It's mostly, you'll get most success if you take anything from this video. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. Most success is going to be from not giving them reasons to have red flags, which means they talk, you don't. And if you facilitate that conversation and try and find that middle ground in what they're saying, that will get you further than anywhere else. But if in the course of them talking, you get your red flags, then potentially you know to exit. But for most guys, if you're physically attracted to somebody, you're going to have to kind of persevere with it. And you know what I mean? That's not in itself going to be enough to put us off in the same way that it is usually for ladies. And further down that line, maybe even kind of, I don't want to get too saucy right now, you get some clarity at different points depending on situations. That's where we kind of get back on track with, this is what I'm looking for and this is the kind of person I'm happy being around. But early on, generally most guys will stick with it.
Both of these dudes looked even more like Jeffrey Dahmer than I do. But the main thing that I thought about when I watched these videos, my main thought was...
Just a second before he goes on, he just made a kind of a self-deprecating comment that he looks like Jeffrey Dahmer. I think one of the key things for this guy is that lack of confidence. And it's hard not to empathize with him, you know what I mean, as a human being, let alone as another man. And sometimes that comes from getting in shape. I'm not saying he's out of shape necessarily. He will talk on that subject, but being healthy, going to the gym, knowing that you're at your maximum, at your peak, and there's not things that she can criticize you for because, as I say, you're looking after yourself. You paying attention to your appearance and your clothes. I mean, look at him. He just looks like he's just, just getting out of, I don't want to say out of bed, but he's definitely just in that casual zone. And that's okay. I mean, I'm casual too. But the point that I'm making is, there's two things. Take care of your appearance. Women care about that. Women care about your smell, how you smell. I don't mean like stink. That's the minimum, that you clean yourself. But if you smell good, oh my gosh, you're putting yourself, you're going up that ladder, you're going up that ranking into that, things that women care about. Okay, also it's about your general confidence. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to be with the weakest runt in the litter. And I'm not being unkind to him, I'm just saying, in some ways he needs to work on self. You know what I mean? And he's, again, confidence. You know what I mean? Some kind of presence. And that's going to come from eye contact and not being self-deprecating and knowing your worth as a man and knowing that you're just having a conversation with somebody. You know what I mean? And those are the only stakes. There's no real stakes beyond that. And hopefully early on in his career, you get over the disappointment of rejection. And he will talk about that a little bit later as well. I'm not sure he has got over that. But for most people in this situation, as they overcome rejection, it's a man's role to approach a lady. And some of the time, she may not be interested. She may not be in that time. That might not be the right time to ask her. Even if she was, she may be in a relationship. And sometimes guys don't want to hear that somebody's in a relationship. So, you know what I mean? If you can't deal with that, then that's on you, especially as a younger man out there, the younger man out there. But yeah, this man here, first thing he needs to work on, self-confidence, clothes, smell, physical health. Again, those endorphins from going to the gym, I think I sort this guy out miles.
What a couple of amateurs. I'm 35 years old and I've never had a girlfriend before. Pretty fucked up, huh?
I'm not going to keep on stopping it, but it is a reviews video. One other thing I want you to keep in mind watching this video, I don't know this guy's background, right? But most men, and I'm not saying he doesn't do it, but most men think quite objectively. They can think subjectively too, but it's all usually about bigger picture. The subjective thought of getting drawn into that is more kind of emotional thinking. And again, that leads you to that kind of self-doubt kind of cycle. The bigger picture is, listen, I've got to play a numbers game at some point and not everybody's going to fancy me. I'm going to take a chance on love. I need to make the first move. That is the male objective thought. And I'm just wondering, basically, long story short, whether this man has had a dominant mother. And I don't want to criticize the mother, but it's more kind of female subjective thoughts. Or whether whether his dad is a part of his life, because he needs steering even as a 35-year-old. So I hope that he finds it. Maybe he watches my video, I don't know, or somebody else's video, and puts him on a path to kind of think about, know your value, know your worth, and put forward your best self, which doesn't mean changing yourself. Dressing nice, smelling nice, being in good shape, focusing on your career. So, just the things you should be doing anyway, that you will lead with that, which encourages confidence. And even if you're not kind of a CEO or somewhere, which most men aren't, I'm not, just being happy in your career and getting some kind of value from it. And if you're not, then work towards it. You don't want to be working towards that when you're maybe 60, 70 years old. He's 35. He can be working on it now if he hasn't already. That's where you get your confidence from.
Yeah, that's my new intro. Pretty annoying, isn't it? Anyway, yes, as I said before, I'm 35 years old and I've never had a girlfriend. Which I don't really feel too bad about my situation because...
No, I was going to let him get away with it. I can't let him get away with it. Did he just give himself a heading calling himself King Nobody? Geezer. When you kind of... listen, as a human being, as a fellow man, and somebody who's struggling and you can't see the route that you need to take, I definitely have sympathy for him. But I can't take the snowflakes, really. And that's another thing. Again, I think if he gets to where he wants to get to, which is the confident person and following the advice about, I don't want to say alpha, because alpha kind of comes across as Chad, but just the fundamentals of, again, look after yourself, how you smell, your career, your ambitions, being good company to be around. Being good company, again, is having confidence in what you're saying and being able to lead a conversation and follow on and hopefully have a two-way conversation. But that would come from, you can facilitate the conversation. The only way it'll be two ways if she can reciprocate, and hopefully she will. And if she can't, that's on her. You know what I mean? She ain't gonna be wifey. Can you imagine the effort to maintain or to continually prompt somebody to have a conversation? Even for what I said initially, at some point she has to show that she's interested in you, and that will be evident over time, but not initially. Not initially, because it's just the way things are that at the beginning men have to make the effort. But don't be self-deprecating either, and don't lead with that, because that shows that that's front of mind, which shows you to be extreme beta. Get over it, my friend. Get over it. Just focus on your strengths. That's the mindset, the winning mindset.
I mean, I know there are other guys out there who are older than me who've never had girlfriends. In fact, I know a guy personally who's 63 and he's never had a girlfriend. I mean, he's gay, but he's never had a girlfriend. But anyway, how did this happen? Well, I guess we gotta go back to my early...
Listen, he made a funny joke. I'm sorry to keep stopping it, but listen, don't find solace in other weak people or people who are going down the wrong road. Probably the right way to put it. I'm not trying to be PC. Don't find solace just because there's other people struggling like what you are. You need to be thinking about best practice, how to move your life forward. Don't look at the other weak ones who are going to convince you in some way that, okay, well, somehow never having a girlfriend at 35 is regular. It's not regular. It's not regular. You need to be focused on what it is that you're not doing this, because without doubt there's something that's missing from your technique, my friend, and your approach. And I've already gave hints about what I've already seen. Well, gosh, a couple of minutes in. Yeah, that's it.
Teenage years, back when I was in junior high school, about 13 or so. I, like a lot of kids my age, were really getting into girls and, asking girls out and going on dates and stuff. And I noticed that a lot of the other boys in school at the time were having girlfriends and stuff. But here's the problem. This is at any age, really. But if you're a guy and you want to date and you're fat and you're nerdy and you're socially awkward, that's pretty much the kiss of death if you want to have any sort of a romantic...
Right. I think I know where this is going, and I have watched it before. If you're fat and nerdy and you're going for the prom queen, then they'd be getting into the kind of sexual market value. Listen, she is above your level. She was above your level, my friend. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, if you haven't got yourself together, you're not putting your A game on there, and it sounds like from that your sexual market value would have been below average. Okay, so you should, if you were going for the below average girl, which isn't in the mentality of anybody to do, but if you were and you still got turned down, then that's just a numbers game you got to play. You know what I mean? And maybe she ain't in the right place in her mind at that time of life. You're talking about being at school. But if you were going for the prom queen, you need to get you can't reach for the moon necessarily. There is this myth or fable about the men who kind of talk a lady into bed or something like that. And you know what I mean? That conversation, women don't really look at looks anymore. They look at personality. Yeah. Well, how are you going to meet her in the first place when she never gives you a chance? Yeah. So that's how they're going to have to, be at school, I guess. Even though that's going to be the most basic conversation because you're both immature by definition. Maybe at college, but there's going to be a lot of competition between you and lots of other men who aren't fat. And there's not necessarily being nerdy. It's going to be a problem. You have to look for a nerdy girl and think about what her criteria is likely to be. And it ain't probably going to be that you're fat and a little bit too needy, because you're coming across as a bit needy as well, my friend. Just need to be confident in yourself. But yeah, you never get the prom queen with that offering, putting that on the table.
Life. Just one of those alone would be bad enough, but all three at the same time, no. But of course, at the time, I didn't realize this. Me, my fat, nerdy, socially awkward 13-year-old self, asked 2 girls out. They didn't say no, but they did say worse than no. The first girl said I just threw up in my mouth, which that was a real self-esteem booster.
Listen, the fact at 35 he's bringing up something from school days, again, it just makes me think that there is definitely more, or probably more, to this guy's story. Rejection is really hard to take. Of course it is. oh my gosh, for everybody. And especially in those younger years. But I think from that point on, and I say I have watched this video before, he must have just withdrew into self, and that might well be a coping mechanism for him. And instead of he's just thinking, taking on the shame, and because obviously when you're a kid, that's really what it's about. When you're an adult, it's like, oh well, I gave it a try. Because every other man has been in that situation, myself and every other man in the world, and it's just a part of life. And it's kind of you accept the fact that not everybody can be into you, and not everybody's going to be polite about it, especially when you're younger and still finding your way, as was she. Or, as I say, you can internalize it, and that kind of sends you on this path of isolation. Well, for him, possibly without knowing his whole story, for over a decade. And it can fundamentally undermine your confidence to try again for some people, for everybody initially, but for other people for longer than others. And again, that tells me that maybe he didn't have a dad in the house. Maybe he did, but you wouldn't think so.
The second girl started crying, told a teacher, and the teacher made me apologize. I had to apologize.
Okay. When you get a story, sorry for keep stopping it, but I have to, because then we'll get carried. We go too far. I don't know this guy, but from the benefit of my experience, if even the teacher was on their side, right, this objective person as a teacher, there was something inappropriate about how you went about it, my friend. You know what I mean? Or something that was leading up to it, which was a little bit inappropriate. Be interested to know if it was a male or female teacher. Of course, a male will be more kind of empathizing naturally, implicitly empathizing with you as a young man trying to chat somebody up because you have an attraction, and how difficult it is, and have a respect for your kind of the fragility of confidence at that level. And as a woman, maybe she would more naturally empathise with other girls, that they don't want to be bothered and harassed when they're just trying to study. And maybe there is something about that kind of pretty privilege, in as much as, and I'm talking for men now, the way that you described yourself as fat and nerdy, where maybe you didn't have that pretty privilege, that even the teacher didn't kind of understand why you would even attempt it. Maybe there is that. And I can have some sympathy for that if that was the case. But all things considered, based on the information that he's presented, and the fact that the girls reacted in a certain way, and the fact that the teacher reacted in a certain way, there was something about how he went about it which was a little bit off key. Probably.
Asking a girl out. Now that is a special level of hideousness right there. And when I got a little bit older and got into high school, my situation didn't really improve either, because it became a lot more normal for, people my age to have girlfriends and stuff, and it just wasn't happening. Like, even the other ugly, nerdy, unpopular girls weren't into me. For example, there was this one girl who I went to high school with. She was very, very fat. She was as fat as I was. Her and I, we were like the two fattest kids in school. And all the kids in school used to joke that her and I should date, just because, I don't know, we're both so fat, and people who are ridiculously fat should date, I guess. I don't know.
I will quickly stop it again. As I kind of gave a hint before, there can be, he's obviously got a self-esteem issue, right? She's going to have a self-esteem issue, very likely, because, as I say, as a young person, confidence comes from your popularity. And yeah, I think I don't know, but having gone through puberty and those teenage kind of school years, it probably was that. And it's interesting with himself as now an older man, being able to reflect on the experiences. He doesn't seem to have moved on. You know what I mean? And kind of look at it and think, yeah, I can see the code now. I can break down what happened for me and for her now, and I'm ready to let that kind of trauma go, that pain go. But I don't think he's there.
I don't think a bed could support the both of us, unless it was made out of titanium or something. So I don't know. But people were joking about me and her dating and whatnot. And one day, she walks up to me. Before I had a chance to say anything, she says, "David, I just want you to know that I find you disgusting, and I would never date you." And she walked away. So, yeah, once again, another...
Again, like, listen, if he's never said anything to her, and somebody else has said something to her, which has led for her to go up and march up to him, listen, you've been set up, my friend. Have you not? He's been to school. Do you not know this? Yeah, somebody's put something in her ear. They're kind of ridiculing you, probably, or ridicule. It's horrible to think about, but you got to think about these kind of school dynamics. Again, as a 35-year-old, people like to make a joke, and they kind of bring somebody down in order to try and elevate themselves, and that's what's happened. Somebody has scapegoated you or something like that, made you I don't want to say the fool, but they made you the butt of the jokes, basically. So that's how she reacted. And they probably fed something to her that you are, in terms of words, that you're really into her, but they've done it in a way which wasn't selling you as a candidate. Surely that's clear to you by now. I don't think it is.
Self-esteem booster right there. The fattest and one of the most unpopular girls in school thought I was disgusting. My senior year of high school, my senior year.
Okay, listen, he just, again, sorry if I keep stopping, but he just described her as the fattest and most unpopular person, that she should be almost be grateful. But he should be empathizing, because he's also described himself as fat and as the least popular. So, as much as I do empathize with him, and I sincerely I do, it's kind of like he is almost trying to be the bully and part of the problem by describing her that way and thinking that she should be grateful for his attention, instead of empathizing that they were both in a situation where they were bullied and alienated, and not recognizing that, and him not having empathy for her. I don't really like that as a quality, but I'm not saying I'm not trying to say he's a bad person, but the road he needs to take needs to be about, I say, reflecting and empathizing with others, as well as he would like them to empathize with him and his situation, and trying to distance himself from the situation in order to understand it. And after all these years, it doesn't seem like that's happened.
I decided to go on a big self-improvement kick. I lost the weight. I got myself a job at Walmart. From that job at Walmart, I greatly improved my social skills. Things are going good. I even started to date a little bit. The thing is, these dates didn't really go anywhere, which didn't really bother me at the time, because it's like, whatever. But I got a little bit older. I got a much better job in my early 20s, which I'm still working at today. I started going on even more dates. And they also went absolutely nowhere. The women who I dated kind of thought of me as just like the funny friend for the most part. But some of the women I dated...
The funny friend, all of his dates went nowhere. The law of probability is, once or twice that may well be an outlier, but if it keeps on happening and keeps on happening, and women are obviously interested in him, that's, oh my gosh, it's a huge thing. So he can overcome that physical barrier. Again, that there's an attraction there, or they would have been if he didn't blow it. So as a man, I say all men have been in that situation, you need to reflect on, what is it I'm talking about with these girls? What is the feedback I'm getting from these girls? Do they actually say the reason why they're not into you? You know what I mean? Is there a common theme? And to be honest, people aren't always honest. You know what I mean? Because they don't want the kickback from it. They don't want the recoil from it. You know what I mean? It's easier just to keep your mouth quiet and let them crack on with it and think, nah, never again. And that's why you have to have that self-reflection about, maybe there's, for me, right, when early on in my career, my dating career especially, there'll be something I think to myself, oh my gosh, that's quite funny at the back of my mind. Oh, I find that so funny. But it's probably not the thing to say right now. And there was a time where I'd just say it anyway for laughs. And then the outcome would be what I always knew it would be, that she somehow took offence and it was just a little bit inappropriate to say. It's usually of a joke of some kind, or challenging her in some way that, well, maybe haven't you thought about it this way? No. And after a period, don't ignore that inner thought. And hopefully, I think you all have it about, oh, maybe that's not the thing to say. But if you do ignore it, own it. That's why you blew it.
They just kind of like thought I was repulsive, and they couldn't even stand being around me. They couldn't even see me as like a friend. And I get it, I'm awkward and annoying and stuff. I mean, and then also another problem with me is, because I don't really have a whole lot of experience doing like physical stuff, like making out and whatnot. So when we started doing stuff like that, like I had no idea what I was doing. It was just really awkward and weird and uncomfortable for the...
Look at the words that he's using, awkward and weird, and didn't know how to kiss, and the intimacy thing. My gosh, man, oh gosh, we do have the internet now. He's on the internet. Is he literally saying there's nothing anywhere, there's no resource, if he classified that or classifies that as a real issue, there's nowhere on YouTube that can give him some clues, and none of them know what they're talking about, so they can plant that seed in your mind and get you at least up to a minimum standard. Is that what he's trying to say? But for everybody to put him in that friend zone again, that's something he needs to kind of reflect on and just think, well, why is that? One of the ways to go about it, I know it's a kind of thing, an easy thing to say. For a long time, I was making a similar mistake myself until I observed men, friends that were doing it. Excuse me. Excuse me. That were much better about interacting with women than myself, and I observed them and I saw their process, and I gave my own version of that same thing. Excuse me. I haven't looked back since. That's what he needs to do. And if he can't get that from his friends or from his network, he needs to get it from online.
Both of us. So these dates just didn't go anywhere, and it was really frustrating. In 2012, I put together a big all-expense-paid vacation for me and several of my online friends to go to Chicago. I paid for the whole thing, everyone's plane tickets, the hotels, everything. It cost me over $8,000. And the reason why I did this was because I wanted to impress a girl who was one of my online friends. And, I had had a crush on her for a long time. We'd been really close. She was one of those cute, nerdy girls, kind of
I think he just said he spent $8,000 to impress an online girl. Right. Okay, anyway, let's see how that pans out.
Boyish, but I thought she was gorgeous. She was just really funny, had a really sharp sense of humor. I find that really attractive in women, to have a sharp sense of humor. And I felt like she got me in a way that nobody else really did because, like me, she was autistic. So I thought we had that, sort of bond there. And I really wanted to, impress her and win her over. So I put together this big trip. I flew 5.
Just get my head around it again. So, hold on, he's spending £8,000. I can understand him kind of flying her out. I mean, it's still a kind of weak thing to do, but you understand, okay, yeah, I want to get to know this girl. In order to get to know her, he feels he has to spend the money. He had the money to spend, $8,000. Either fly himself out and ask, just find out what there is to do there, or fly her out somewhere, or both go together somewhere for the $8,000. I wouldn't do it, but I can understand it. But for him to fly her out and 5 others? Well, I know how it pans out, but let's see how that pans out.
People up to Chicago, and I live close to Chicago, so I just took an Amtrak. And the first night of the trip, the girl who I wanted to impress just randomly just pulled me into the bathroom and started making out with me. Like, I was not expecting it. She just started making out with me. And I almost lost my virginity that night. But I didn't go that far. We were in the bathroom of the hotel room, and all our friends were sitting right outside. So I didn't want them to hear. So I just kind of assumed that I would have an opportunity later. So I was like, okay, yeah, we're not doing this right now, but hopefully.
You know what? Oh my gosh, man. Yeah, listen, I've made that mistake myself. Listen, I'm criticizing. I've never spent $8,000, but there's a few ladies, especially earlier on. You just think for whatever reason, okay, maybe he didn't have protection there. You know what I mean? There could be a lot of reasons why. He didn't mention that. He mentioned he didn't want people to hear, and yeah, and he assumed he'd have another chance. Early on in my kind of dating career, I've had my opportunities where, a gorgeous girl that I would want to have sex with, kind of came on to me, and somebody dragged me into a toilet one time, and I was more thinking about, would I get in trouble if the other girls reported me coming to the toilet? Listen, there's this girl, instead of focusing on the thing, and I never had another chance. And there was a few other times, especially in Freshers Week, oh man, at university, and the same thing nearly happened. That's one way to look at that incident, but I didn't have protection both of those times, so maybe it worked out for the best. I'm STD free, you know what I mean? And goodness knows. The other way to look at it as well, kind of in hindsight, giving myself a little bit of a break, is if a girl comes on to you that strong, especially with this guy and this girl he doesn't even know, she's just an online presence, and how many hungry men are trying to date her. If she's just met you and she's willing to take you to the toilets to get, to have some happy time, you're not the first, my brother. You're not planting any flags. So that as an older man, as an experienced man, you probably got away with it. You know what I'm saying? You don't want that kind of lifelong blessing. You know what I'm saying? Potentially, and ironically, for the kind of wrong reasons, possibly you got away with it. Long story short, and goodness knows if you get some kind of trash girl pregnant. You know what I mean? I don't know this girl, but I'm just thinking, she's just met you and she can be bought in terms of taking her on holiday and getting her pregnant. I mean, you don't even know her. It's trying to get you in the toilet, and I thought, oh, I don't know. Yeah, maybe it worked out best for the wrong reasons, but the other point I want to make is, yeah, you've just met a girl, you've never slept with her. If you turn down that opportunity for intimacy, odds are you're never going to have it again. In her mind, she's switched off from you, and there's no coming back. And you won't even be in the friend zone. She's not even going to acknowledge you. You know what I mean? So I've been there before. But if you've slept with her probably at least once, minimum once, then yeah, fair enough. If you've done a good job, then you'll have other opportunities. But that first one, yeah, I can't turn it down unless you're very sure that's what it's going to be, and you won't get another chance. The odds dictate.
Later. So, but I felt great. I felt amazing. I'm like, oh, I finally got the girl. And I was like on cloud nine for the next day. Yeah, the next day I was feeling pretty great. And then that night, the girl who I wanted to impress had sex with one of the other guys on the trip while I was in the room. $8,000 to hear the girl of my dreams get railed by.
I shouldn't laugh about that, man. But yeah. So that's the difference between somebody, yeah, who's a novice. Listen, he learned a lesson that day. So you went to school that day, my brother. Take that lesson, put it in your brain, and know what the stakes are the next time. That's the only thing you can take from it. And that gentleman who kind of made the most of it, maybe he made mistakes before, and having learned that lesson, he made the opportunity for it. He didn't pass it up. You know what I mean? But and hopefully, as I say, she's STD free, as is his friend, and lesson learned.
Another guy. Fantastic. What happened was a couple years later, when I was about 26, I kind of went through a dark phase where I got really into drinking. I was drinking, getting drunk pretty much every day. I was drinking Caliber vodka, which is like the shittiest, cheapest, bottom shelf vodka you can get. But it's cheap and it gets you drunk fast, so that's why I drink it. So I would drink that every day. I would eat pretty much nothing but junk food. Like, my diet was probably 80% pizza, and I'm not exaggerating. I would chain smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and I did this every day for about 5 years. Every day I would get off work, I would go home, get drunk off the cheap vodka, chain smoke, eat the junk food.
Yeah, listen, yeah. There's something more about this guy's story. You know what I mean? Um, not everybody's built strong, but yeah, it's kind of bringing across like childhood neglect. Neglect of him when as a child, and a lack of support, and some kind of insecurity, and some issues and stuff. Maybe, you know what I mean. Something about his upbringing. I mean, I say some people are naturally along that line, so I'm not ruling that out, but he just doesn't have that coping mechanism, does he? You know what I mean? Even after all this time, and yeah, and the drinking, the smoking, and the food. So he was a large child. His words was fat. Obviously, with that diet that he's talking about now, it's going to be the same as an adult. Um, yeah, it's that kind of fight and flight is what I'm thinking as well. It's like some people look at an issue and think, yeah, I'm going to tackle it. And other people kind of withdraw. And he's a withdraw type guy. Um, and also what I'm thinking is, oh man, this is what I'm thinking now. That inner voice I was talking about earlier, this is again, I'm going to come across as too harsh, but it's honest. If you're with somebody who's fundamentally sensitive, is the nicest way I can put it, and like this guy, and his threshold for things is probably lower than others who are more robust, you know what I mean, like the typical guys, you got to know what you're taking on. You know what I mean? I think some people definitely who've had difficult childhoods and things like that, they need to fix themselves before they go into the marketplace, I guess is what I'm saying. And this gentleman is probably one of those candidates. And even if he had good friends around him, which could consistently kind of move him in the right direction, that would help. But even with that, that can be quite exhausting, and the person has to want to get there. Yeah, something like that, and maybe a little bit of therapy would get him there. Yeah, who knows? But a male therapist.
And I was just not taking good care of myself. I gained over 150 pounds, and I'm not exaggerating. I had to wear old people diapers to bed because I kept pissing myself. I would go months without bathing. I would go months without brushing my teeth. I got periodontal disease because I took such poor care of my teeth. I was just a mess. I was going into work hungover, and it was just not good. It was just not good. I was not taking care of myself. And I did this, from the age of 26 to 30. I refer to that era as my drinking days. So if you ever hear me refer to my drinking days, I'm referring to that era. But anyway, one day when I was 30, I was starting to develop some chest pains.
You said that's not a drink. That's not your drinking days. That was your kind of substance abuse days. That's your substance abuse days. That is beyond normal. All the smoking, not washing, excessive drinking, obviously. Yeah, man. Yeah, you needed some. And who are the people around this guy? I'm getting more kind of orphan vibes now, and care home kind of guys. People, and it might not necessarily be the case. And I know people have gone through that system, and they're very strong. But I also happen to know from my career and experience, and not my personal experience, but experience of people I've met. If you don't have those people around you, and you're just isolated and alone, there's nobody to hear you and hear your thoughts and put their experience into you. You know what I mean? And give you that kind of little bit of advice that you take on as and when you need it. You got that voice and guidance in that direction. It's produces kind of broken adults. So if you've never had that help, then how can you ever know how to overcome things which other people can seem kind of much easier? And I hope this guy gets help. Hopefully from the comments, he must have a billion comments. He had was it 300,000 helps and views and that. And yeah, brother, stick with it. You're a young man. Men never get old, or you know what I mean. Old is at the very extreme, so you can still turn this thing around, and I hope he does.
I went to the doctor, and he took my blood pressure and did some other stuff and asked me some questions. And he point blank told me, yeah, you're going to be dead by 40 if you don't start making some serious life changes. That was pretty terrifying. And what made it even more terrifying is that two really close online friends of mine around this time had died in their 30s doing the same things I was doing. The first friend of mine who died was extremely overweight, like 600-pound life size. I mean, Dr. Now would have had a field day with this guy. He got really big and it just killed him. He was in his early 30s too. My other friend, also in his 30s, was a massive alcoholic. He ended up dying of liver failure. Yeah, so I took that news from my doctor of me being told point blank that I died at 40. I saw my friends dying. Well, I didn't see them dying, but them dying combined with that news.
Okay, so in terms of that network of people I was saying who can give him advice and put him on the right track, and give him the vision about how to get there, that little bit of advice, his circle, they ain't those guys, are they? You know what I mean? They're kind of worse than him. There's not much positive to take from it, because obviously, sadly, two people who should still be here and they're passed. But the only thing is, he saw that and recognised that was also the route for him. So at least there was one survivor. But you got to be thinking about the network that you're in. Yeah, that kind of friends network. I'm not blaming them, because they were all kind of had the same kind of challenges. But as I say, that little bubble is one of the problems for you, my friend.
It really set off the alarms in my head. Ever since then, I've just tried to have a new and positive outlook on life, because the thing about life is, yeah, it sucks sometimes and it's annoying and, it can be unfair, but I like life. I figure I'm 35 now. I got another 40-something years, give or take, in front of me. Why not just see what happens? So, yeah, I mean, I decided, start eating healthier, lost the weight. I quit drinking. I quit smoking. And, I just try to focus on doing things that, I just enjoy and have fun with, like video games and movies and whatnot. But, just try to live a better lifestyle and, not worry too much about things that, I don't have, and just try to enjoy the things I do have, which I guess some people would probably see as a cope, which, I mean, if it's a cope, it's a cope, whatever. I mean, I would rather cope than, wear old people diapers to bed personally. I'm just going to sit back and let the chips fall where they may, and who knows what'll happen. That's pretty much all I got to say in this video. I guess I'll see all you nobodies later.